Good morning, my dear students, and welcome back to the class on active and passive voice. In the previous class, we had learned the definition of active and passive voice, and I had taught you the four different changes or four basic changes that you need to keep in mind when you are converting an active voice into passive voice. In today's class, we are going to see how these four changes are taking place with the help of different examples. I hope you remember the four different changes or the four basic changes that you need to keep in mind when you are converting an active voice into passive voice. So let's go through the notes today. So once again I am telling you, these are the four changes that you will have to keep in mind when you are converting an active voice into passive voice. The subject of the active voice will be changed into the object of the passive voice. Object of the active voice will become the subject of the passive voice. Past participle form of the verb and the use of by. So let's take one by one and see how it happens in a particular sentence. The first change, subject of the active voice will become the object of the passive voice. So let's take the first example. I write a letter, that is in active voice. Subject is I, verb is write, object is a letter. A letter is written by me, that is in passive voice. Subject is a letter, verb is written, object by me. So what happens? The subject I in the active voice becomes the object me in the passive voice. Means subject of the active voice will become the object in the passive voice. I hope you have understood the first change. Now moving on to the second one. Object of the active voice will become the subject of the passive voice. Object of the active voice will become the subject of the passive voice. How does it happen in a sentence? So let's take the example. I write a letter, that is in active voice. Subject is I, verb is write, object is a letter. A letter is written by me, that is in passive voice. Subject is a letter, verb is written, object is by me. So what happens here? The object called a letter in the passive and the active voice becomes the subject of the passive voice. A letter is the object in the active voice and that object becomes the subject a letter in the passive voice. So the object of the active voice will become the subject of the passive voice. Now moving on to the next one. The third change, past participle form of the verb to be used in the passive voice. Past participle form of the verb to be used in the passive voice. Now let's see how it happens. Take the example. I write a letter, that is in active voice. Subject is I, verb is write, object is a letter. A letter is written by me, that is in passive voice. Subject is a letter, verb is written, object by me. So form of the verb in the active voice, that is write, is in its first form. As I have told you, there are three forms for the verb: first form, second form and the third form. So the form of the verb in active voice, that is write, is in its first form. Form of the verb in the passive voice, that is written, is in its past participle form or the third form. So remember, in the passive voice we always use the past participle form of the verb or the third form of the verb. I hope you have understood. Now moving on to the next one, the last change, use of by in the passive voice. Again we have the same example so that you will understand it better. I write a letter, that is in active voice. A letter is written by me, that is in passive voice. We have used the word called by to denote or to indicate the agent in the passive voice. Agent means by whom a particular action is done. So we are using the word called by in the passive voice to denote the agent of the action, by whom the action is done. So these are the main basic changes that you will have to keep in mind while you are converting an active voice into passive voice. So kindly go through these notes once again and try to understand by yourself, and if there is any doubt you can ask me. I hope you have understood the 4 basic changes of active, or 4 basic changes that you'll have to keep in mind when you are converting an active voice into passive voice. So hope all of you are fine and continue to study well. Thank you.